What up, what up? Welcome to Pattersonboyzllc presents the Producer's Corner. I'm your host, Holla Black. I'm gonna start, this episode off with me giving you a story, or not a story, but backdrop of what gave me the passion and the drive to start music, producing, where the origins of it started with me. I grew up, I was born in the 70s, so I grew up listening to LL Cool J, Public Enemy, 𝗓𝗓, Eric B. Rakim, Coogee Rap, Polo, NWA, the list goes on. Before that, Sugar Hill Gang, Fearless 4, African Bambaataa, 𝗓𝗓𝗃, Kumo D, MC Shan, the list goes on. KRS-One. So that was all of that put into the gumbo pack and stirred up into a formula that created a lot of different ideas and thoughts in my mind as I was growing up. You understand? Because as a young kid growing up, and you're listening to music and you're influenced by all these different things that's around you, sometimes you can take a hold of certain things. But with the music, I see in the time when I was coming up, all the rappers had messages in it, and they was really trying to push messages. They was rappers and artists, but to me they was more like freedom fighters. They was getting their message across through music, right? So as me being a young kid and paying attention to this, listening, watching videos, self-destruction, and the Fearless 4, the Fearless 4, they was right from my neighborhood. They was in the projects that I grew up in, Manhattanville. Tito, Peso, Mike C, DLB, the whole Fearless 4 crew. Tito was from Grant. Peso, Mike C was from Manhattanville, where I was from. And like they whole little circle, and 𝗓𝗓𝗃, Kumo D, all of them, they went to school with my mother and my aunts, my uncles. So, it was, to me, it was something big, to see them on video, music box, and watching their videos, watching them. They did their first video in the neighborhood where I grew up at, where I was born and raised at. They did it right in front of the, right there on 126th Street and Old Broadway, if you're familiar with Harlem. And the video is still up, so you can go check it on YouTube. It was all people that grew up with my uncle and my mother. They all in the video, and that kind of inspired me, but it didn't inspire me to where I was like, I want to be a rapper. I seen that they was entertainers, because I knew them. I was a young kid, but I knew them behind the leather suits and all that, what you see in the video. So when I seen that, I was like, okay, they hip hop rock stars, but they from my neighborhood. My mother knew them, my aunts, uncles, they grew up with them and went to school with them, so it was, to me it was a big thing. as time went on, the music bug didn't bite me yet. So as time went on, I grew up and I was into a lot of different things as a kid. I could say, maybe in the early 80s, mid 80s, when I started listening to Run DMC and Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim, and NWA, Salt and Pepper. The Tribe Called Quest. The list goes on. I was influenced, and then like what driven me. I was I don't know what it was, but I was young and I used to see I seen Jazzy Jeff. He had a video to where he was getting busy, he was getting busy on turntables, and I seen like everybody was loving him and his name was big. So I'm like, okay, Jazzy Jeff. But then when I started studying and doing my research, I'm seeing Jazzy Jeff, I'm seeing Eric B, DJ Polo, I'm seeing all these different DJs, and at the top of the list, I seen it started from Jam Master Jay, but I didn't look at him like he was just a DJ. I felt like he was a part of that group. So it was a different thing when I looked at it from a different view. So as time went on, and I seen that the DJs is the one that controls the music. They're the ones that's producing the music, and without them, and I seen everything was centered a lot in the early 80s. Everything was centered around the DJ. Most of the rappers, they was talking about their DJ. MC like, kick this one here for me and my DJ. So everything was like, centered around the DJ. And as me as a teenager, and I'm, in the early 80s, everything was about influence and if you can do this and if you was known, because there wasn't no internet, none of that. If you wasn't outside, you ain't know what was going on. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of the artists that was coming up at the time when I was young and coming up, they had street teams, they had promotion, they had things to where they was getting a message across in a real way, where real people was working. It's not like now where you just throw something on the internet and you might wake up the next day and it's viral. No, then you had to really work. If you wasn't outside, you didn't know what was going on and who was what and who was doing what, right? So I was a kid that was outside early, right? And I was influenced by the whole culture of hip hop. I was a tag artist. I used to break dance. The whole culture of hip hop. I did the fashion thing, all that. You understand what I'm saying? One thing I didn't do. I didn't tag on trains, but I knew people who did. You understand? I didn't have the guts to be running at that time. You got caught tagging on a train and all that. You was getting locked up. But I know some top shelf taggers that's still in the game now. Shout out to Cass. Cass, shout out to you. You know what I'm saying? You from Manhattanville, my boy Cass, born and raised in Manhattanville. One of the top taggers. Names used to be on the trains, and when we used to see his name up there on that one line, we used to know what's up. So shout out to you, Cass. You know what I'm saying? Still doing your thing. Still is one of the top artists in the world right now. You know what I'm saying? But he's a part of the hip hop culture. You know what I'm saying? He was there, and he can tell you about Mike C, Peso, Fearless Four, a lot of things that went on in the culture with hip hop. And you know what I mean? He was one of the dudes that I watched at a young age, because he was older than me. Watch how passionate he was for the art and for the culture of this, of everything, of this. So shout out to you, Chaz. He's one of the Cass. Excuse me. Shout out to you, Cass. Chaz, you my boy, Chitty Chaz. You know you here too. Shout out to Cass. You know, one of the four founding fathers, and one of the ones that was there from day one, far as tagging on trains. He was there before I even got passionate for the music. So shout out to Chad. I'm Cass. Chitty Chaz, man, you on my mind. Shout out to you, Chad. But yeah, you know, that was one of the things that, you know, gave me passion and gave me drive and showed me to, you know what I mean, to believe in something that you love and something that you want to do. You stay driving and you stay going for it. You know what I mean? You don't never give up. You understand what I'm saying? And like I said, from that point on, you know, I dabbled and dabbled in, you know what I mean? It wasn't music, but it was, you know what I mean? I was around people that always had passion for music. So as a young kid, one year I begged my mom. One year I begged her, Mom, please, I want to be a DJ. You know, and she's like, you know. But then, you know, Christmas time came around, and then Christmas came, and I came out. I had a whole DJ set. I had techniques, I had the mixer, I had everything. And like from that point on, I was like locked in. I was croning my style and my craft. You know what I mean? Because I didn't, you know, I just knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't, you know, it didn't like I was, as soon as I got it, I got on and I knew what I was doing. So it took me some time. You know, I worked at it. You know what I mean? I worked at it. I watched. I was always watching Jam Master Jay, Terminator X, Eric B. and Rakim, DJ Polo, Marley Marl. You know, those is like my top 5 that I used to watch. You know, DJing and they was like, I'm like, wow, man, these dudes is really, you know, doing it. So, you know, I used to study all of them and trying, you know, I was never really perfect with the mixing and scratching and stuff like that. But, you know, I was good with blending, and then at a certain age, my mom moved to Polo Grounds, and Ron G was like living a couple of flights up from me, and you know, me and him went to school already, so it was, you know what I mean, so it was nothing. And then around at the same time, I think they was filming Above the Rim, so you know, we just catch each other on the elevator. Yo, hey, what's up? It was nothing, you know. And I think at the time when he was filming Above the Rim, he was doing his mixtapes, his blend tapes. And one time, when he was doing it, he happened to get Pop and his crew up there to get on his mixtapes. You know what I'm saying? Which was a big thing, you know what I mean? But me at the time, I had the DJ and I was into the DJing, but it wasn't generating me no money. So I was in the streets. You know, that was like a hobby thing to me. You know what I mean? I didn't see the picture that Ron G and, you know what I mean, and a lot of my other peers that I came up in, you know, DJ SNS, shout out to you, that came up in the game, you know what I mean, when they was going to buy records, You know what I'm saying? I was going to buy other things. And you know what I'm saying? They had the vision. They was ahead of their time. I give them that. You know what I mean? Because Ron G always was the blend king, and DJ SNS, he used to do the sneaker parties and sell them out. You know what I'm saying? And he's still on his grind to this day. And Ron G still on his grind. And these are guys that I know. I grew up with. You know what I'm saying? We see each other in passing in anywhere. We're gonna stop and show each other love. You understand what I'm saying? But saying that to say is that when I was watching them on their climb, I didn't see what they seen. You know what I'm saying? As far as with this music, I was always in the music, and you know what I mean. But I didn't see what they seen. And by the time I did get a chance to see what they were seeing, it was, you know what I'm saying, everything changed. They was at a different level. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that, I couldn't get next to them or nothing, but it was just that, you know, they was doing what they needed to be doing to sustain things for them and their family. You understand what I'm saying? And me, I was on a different page, so I didn't see it. But as time went on, you know what I mean, and me doing research and me, trial and error, and seeing that a lot of my peers that I did grow up with and went to school with, seeing them being successful with music and entertainment and these different things, it intrigued me to make me, dive more into it, so to say, and to pay attention more to what was going on. Because a lot of times I wasn't paying attention. I was just focusing on, I gotta get the money. I want to get this money. You're a young kid. You're naive, and you're out there doing negative things. You're out there doing negative things, thinking positive things is gonna happen, and that's not what it is. So, I stayed on the grind. I worked, stayed focused. You know what I mean? As time went on, I was always doing my DJ thing, and I was in the studio with 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘, and they was in this. They had a producer. I forget his name, but they was dealing with. Oh, the producer name is 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓. Shout out to 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓. They were the Scots crew. They was in there. They had one of them Nick players that was co-signing. They was heating up. They was hot. And we was at that studio on 145th. I forget the name of it, but it was on 145th between Broadway and Amsterdam. And we all up in there. A lot of good records was done. I mean, this is around the time I was doing everything. I was doing DVDs. I had my own, DVD. This is when everybody was putting out, DVDs, street DVDs. So I had my own DVD called Independent Grind. But anyway, we was in that studio with the 𝗧𝗟𝗓𝗓 crew, and they was in there. They was knocking some hits out, and I'm recording and stuff, and at that time I seen, the dude 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 had an MPC 2000. He had some heat coming out of there, and I'm like, you know, in my mind, I'm like, damn, I ain't making them, you know, I ain't making them beats like that. And I'm looking, and, you know, I'm like, damn, in my mind, I'm like, yo, I gotta get one of those, you know what I'm saying? You know, while I was on my recording thing, I had my camcorder, I'm in the booth recording with, I'm like recording all the different schools members, as they laying their verses down. And I'll never forget, like, we was all in there, we was chilling, and it was a whole good vibe. But the whole time, I'm like, wow, man, that dude got that, cause the beats they was crazy. I ain't gonna lie, he had some heat. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, man, he got that coming out of that machine like that. I gotta get me one of those. You know what I'm saying? And you know, as time went on, I like was still focused on the music, but my mind was still, you know, in other places, to where I'm like, yeah, music is there, but I gotta survive. And never forget, God bless his dad, my man 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 came up from Virginia with his cousin. I think he had just got some lawsuit or whatever. I don't know what happened, but they ran into a lot of money. So he had the Benz, came up. He said, yo, Black, come on, man, come take a ride with me. We went, rolled downtown, we smoking bud, we chilling, blasting music. They go downtown and they buy an MPC 3000, the 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗘 edition. And I'm like, wow, baby. Like, they went up in the building, came out the building, and I'm like, damn, let me see. I'm like, what's that? And they like, yo, man, this is what Timbaland and them make all the hits from, you know, like, because, you know, they was from Virginia, and around that time, Timbaland, Missy Elliott, and all of them they was knocking hits out the park from Virginia. And then, you know, we had Swiss up here, Greece, you know. So it was like, you know, all as I look back, all of these things was, you know what I'm saying, key points to drive me, you know what I'm saying, more towards the music, as, you know what I mean, as my progression of my life went. So at that point, when my boy 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 and them got that, God bless his dad, I seen that, and I'm like, wow. Once I seen the 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓, I was locked in. I'm like, oh, I gotta get a 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓. Did that when I got it, when I got dead set, I had to get one though. So when I first, like, they left, you know, and I stayed, you know, grinding. But when I first got a chance to get one, I got an MPC 2000, and I had got a Triton. Because at the time, you know, if you ain't have a Triton, your sound wasn't that sound. So I had me an MPC 2000, and I got me a Triton. Like, you know, I was, you know, I felt I was doing my thing, you know what I mean? You know, after a while, as time went on, I stumbled across an MPC 3000, the 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 edition. I felt like, yo, this gonna step my, you know, it's gonna step my music game up. But what a lot of people don't know is that don't matter what machine you're using or what software you're using, it's in you. If you know what I'm saying, it's in you. If you can't produce good music, then it's not in you. You know what I'm saying? No, don't matter what software you use or what machine you use, it's in you. So, you know, at that time, I felt like, yo, man, I gotta get that, because that's what they doing to make, you know, that's what, you know, Dr. Dre and, you know, all these different big producers is using. So I gotta get the same thing they got, you know. And a lot of times, with music, with life, with anything, you know what I'm saying, what's for them is for them. You know what I'm saying? What works for him may not work for me. You understand what I'm saying? But I've always been an MPC man. From day one, my first machine was an MPC, and I've never stopped using MPC since. You know, and that's just a little backdrop of, you know what I'm saying, what driven me, and what driven me to using the software that I use. I'm a Pro Tools man. I always stuck with Pro Tools. I never used no other software than that. That's just, you know, probably following what everybody else do. But yeah, that's just the backdrop. You know, I dealt with a lot of people. You're gonna see, you know what I mean, in episodes. We're gonna talk a lot about a lot of different things. We're gonna interview a lot of different people. You know, you just stay tuned, stay locked into the producer's corner. I'll play a few things before I get out of here. Drop a comment, subscribe, follow us on all platforms. Hey, let me know what's on your mind. You locked into the producer's corner.